Forgive me. A little bit. Nah, give me one, Mr. Doctor, Mr. Doctor. Let's go. I got it. Where's Thank you, Mr. Combs. You got her angle. All right, time to go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this very exciting Tuesday morning. My name is Winston Robinson. I am a facilitator at the prestigious Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Morning Forum, along co-facilitators Ms. Laura McCletty, Ms. Carlenia Ivory Canty, Ms. Jackie Edwards Walton, Ms. Nathalie McElrath, our timekeeper, Ms. Mary Johnson, Mr. Shea Abdullah, Mr. Gary Young, Dr. Thomas Moore, our house musician, Steve Johnston, our website editor and archivist, and Ms. Sarita Sherrill, who is our chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, we do this every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. This forum organically started in the mid-1970s. If you want to know how organic, that's how. They really don't know the year. It's somewhere around the mid-70s. But again, this is the quintessential, most effective way to get that very detailed, meticulous, nuanced information to the Black community. And it has served in that capacity for nearly 50 years. Thank you all for joining us. Every week we start with a prayer when I ask Mr. Ken Combs to lead us in a word, quick word.
I know some of y'all said, who? You all know the words to lift every voice and sing, so that's the prayer for today. But a little special twist to that will be, so if you'll join me in prayer. Oh Lord, may the words of my mouth, our mouths, be acceptable in your sight. Lord, we've come a long way through faith, hope, and the reality we see here today. But Lord, we're at another point now where we really need you. And we continue to trust you, oh God, like we have done in ages past and into the future. We thank you, Lord, for these four who have come to address us today and let us talk to them. And may all that we do be done to glorify you. And for this large crowd we have today, oh God, may they know and understand that this ain't the end. We're here every week, Lord. And for everything we do, something faces one of them. But if this is their first, their last time, be with them wherever they are. But always, Lord, we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Mr. Combs, on this day of Black History Month. Mr. Ken Combs is the first Black on-air journalist in a leading market, right? Leading market station. So yeah, history within itself. Now I want to ask, please, we want to acknowledge the Foundation for Black Philanthropy. If you are a member, please stand. All right, Mr. Austin Kiana. Don't be fooled, we call this Tuesday morning breakfast, but there's never breakfast. But today, shout out. Look at that, being all philanthropic. Thank you. Yeah, so if it's your first time, please come back to see us. We're here every Tuesday except holidays and election day. And the moment we've all been waiting for, so let me say this to Mayor Anthony Foxx. He tried to get down here, and hopefully he will connect on Zoom. But yeah, had something come up. Yeah, and we have a video as well. You would think the Secretary of Transportation would have the ultimate plug on flights, but now he hopefully again We might have him on Zoom. We do have a new president. So our guest today for this historic panel, every week we do this. We have a moment for silence. When you take out your phone and put it on silent, don't be the one with that uncle ring all loud. Please be intentional about ensuring the silence of your phone. And the content part too. Don't let us know you're on TikTok while we're having a conversation. So there, we have a timekeeper. We have questions that will, did we give them? So we're going to do it a bit differently this week because we have so many people. We're going to pass out slips of paper. And you write your name on it. If you have a question, we are going to just draw a name out of a hat. We're going to likely have room for about 3 to 5 questions. So if you would like to ask a question, if you raise your hand, we'll make sure you get a little piece of paper. With your, yes, put your name on it. And with that, we have Ms. Nathalie McElrath. She is our timekeeper to make sure the questions are precise, 30 seconds and under. We're going to give grace to the panel because we typically ask that responses are within 2 minutes, but you know, ain't nobody stopping this group. So you can talk as long as you want. But people ask questions, 30 seconds. So without further ado, the distinguished panel, the mayors of this beautiful city, Charlotte, North Carolina. We have, I'm just start from left to right. We have Mr. Patrick Cannon. We have Mr. Harvey Gantt. And we have Mrs. Vi Lyles. So we typically have 3 to 5 minutes for an introduction, but we're going to start like this. So in your introductions, because we all know who you are, we have the context. Opening questions. Tell us your name, where you're originally from, when you served as mayor, and finally, what was your welcome to the seat moment? The moment you realized that, oh, this might be a little bit different from city council. And take us through that moment and how you processed it. And we will start with Mayor Harvey Gantt.
First of all, good morning. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here. I know these crowds are not as big on a regular basis. I was here when when this Breakfast Now forum was started. Oh my goodness, decades ago. And we pay great tribute to the leaders who put this together, because I think it's been a good thing and a lasting thing that is good for Charlotte. Now, I haven't been to a breakfast meeting in at least 15 years. I was trying to count back. But that's not because I wasn't interested. But let me follow Winston's admonition. My name is Harvey Gantt. I was born in the lovely city of Charleston, South Carolina. And spent my first 17 years there, raised in a family of where I had 4 naughty sisters who annoyed me a lot, but we got along fine, and wonderful parents. And I ultimately, through a long journey, made it to Charlotte, North Carolina, because that was the only town that offered me a job. Back in those days, it was tougher to get a job than it is for you now, particularly if you're an architect, when there were very few architects in America. 1 out of every 100 persons were architects, so that's 1%, right? And I resided here, did not have a very good first night in Charlotte, but ultimately ended up in a good situation. It's been a great town for me. I've met a lot of people. I guess that crazy question you wanted me to answer was, when did the lights go on for me when I became mayor? Well, most of you know that I spent 3.5 terms on the city council, ran in 1979. And I need to tell you more about that than I do about when I actually won. Because I felt if you aspire to anything, you have to see yourself in that position. Because the first day you're there, you're going to have to be confident about what it is you're trying to accomplish. In 1979, I ran against a very popular state senator in this town. He had not served on the city council, but he was a very astute politician and statesman. Eddie Knox and I turned out to be friends. But my first race was running against him. And in that environment of 1979, a lot of you weren't even born, I had to be a very confident person. I had to understand what this office meant. And if I wasn't, I thought I'd be eaten alive in the election campaign. So my first realization of what it meant to be a mayor was when I was running for mayor. After all, I'd spent a lot of time watching mayors, John Belk and Ken Harris and others, and I knew what they did. I knew how I would do it, and I think that makes all the difference in the world, is the confidence to believe that you can make things happen. And of course, the first rule was you got to find a way to make sure that you understand the goals and the visions of the people who you need to have support from. I got great support from the African American community. Fantastic support. What is it, 95, maybe 98%. And great support across Charlotte. I think at that time we only had 26% of the community was African American, maybe even a little less than that. But we won all of those votes, and we won all of those. We won a substantial minority of white voters in this community, which gave us a victory when I ran. That was 1979, and I lost by a couple of hundred votes. Okay. That emboldened me even more to say that I could do it. Ran back for city council, became a mayor pro tem, and then ran in 1983 and served for 2 terms. I won, and I will never forget that night. And I remember Lionel Richie's song All Night Long. And we literally danced all night long because that had happened. The other final thing I'd say is mayors are successful when they can find a way to get along with the council members. Because a mayor basically is the chairman of the board of a corporation. And the directors of that corporation are the council members. We've gone from 7 people on council when I first got on the city council, and we've gone now to 11 people. So I had to be able to count to 6 at least. 6 in order to get anything to happen. I think I've gone on long enough, but that's how I saw my first.
Thank you so much. I tell you what, we're gonna just treat this like a black high school graduation. Let's save the applause in the interest of time so we can get a more fulfilling conversation. Thank you for the courtesy though. Mayor Cannon and Mayor Lyles.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Black History Month. My name is Patrick D'Angelo Cannon. I am a native Charlottean. Born at then Memorial Hospital, now Atrium Health. And the time period for me during my serving as mayor would have been from December the 2nd of 2013 through March the 26th of 2014. taking you back into the time when I first got elected. I was 26 years old, and I was not looking to run for office at all. Someone by the name of Ella Scarborough. Yes. Honorable Ella Scarborough. Happened to see me out at one of our neighborhood meetings in my own community. And she heard me speak. And then she heard me speak over at Wilmore. And she said, son, I don't know who you are, but you should consider running for city council. I said, oh, no. Thank you, but no thank you. And I'm a person whereby I try to think before I speak. That was a time where I did not, when I made that comment to her, and I said to her, thank you, but no thank you. And I said to her, I feel like you don't have to have a title in society to be a strong voice in society. I didn't sleep well that night. She was working then at Duke Power. And I called her the next day. And I said, Councilwoman Scarborough, I said, this is Patrick Cannon. I said, listen, I have something to say to you. I said, one, I'm sorry about my comments because I really didn't think those through. And I said, you know, while you probably don't have to have a title in society to be a strong voice in society, a title helps. And if I can help the masses rather than a few, tell me about this game called politics. And it was at that point whereby she took me under her wing, and we ran, and I guess a person by the name of Roosevelt Gardner. And it was interesting, to say the least, because I came in backward. Never served on any committees. Wasn't appointed to anything. I came in green as a blade of grass. And when we were on the campaign trail, he had these people that had walkie-talkies. They were feeding all folks along the way, and he said, you know we got this, right? We ended up getting 76% of the vote. Nice, wow. And at that point, I knew and I understood that this was something I could not pretend to be wanting to engage in. It had to be something where you had to be genuinely committed, because in City Council District 3, it was an area that what we would call then fragile and or threatened. And meaning it was physically, socially, and economically threatened. It was unstable. And I recall when I did get elected, Jim Morrill, who's here today, by the way, from the Charlotte, former Charlotte Observer, he called me and he said, hey, he said, Patrick, you won by a landslide. What's that to say about some of the people who didn't support you? I said, well, it just says they supported the person who they thought would best represent the district. He said, you're being political already. He may not remember that, but I remember that. When you're going through this phase in your life, there are things that you just don't forget. And can I just tell each and every one of you here that I am so grateful. I am so humble for every experience that I had to endure. Good, bad, and or indifferent. Because how else can one become wise but through experience? And I am, again, so grateful and I'm so thankful. And so, not me, but we, the people of City Council District 3, we went and we took on our district in a way where we saw Wilkerson Boulevard be transformed, redesigned. We went through a way of working with planning staff and that a person like Deborah Campbell, who's now up in Nashville, I believe, as city manager, I believe, in Vi Lyles. And we worked to change patterns, zoning patterns, to create opportunity, to bring about investment along Wilkerson, because we knew all of that was going to be trickling over to West Boulevard. And I said, you know something? In Plaza Midwood, they got nice decorative fences and herringbone fences and decorative lighting, things of that nature. I want this in our district. We got those things all along West Boulevard, right? But not just beyond that, but we went and we said, you know what? We have an area with crime. Prostitution was really, really heavy in that area, particularly along Moorhead Street. We instituted something called John TV. Well, we took the Johns off the street because they were taking down our community. But then economic development was the key thing that was really, really important to me. Why? Many of you may or may not know, but Maynard Jackson, former mayor of Atlanta, was my mentor. We talked often. And it's where I believe that I got my pedigree from in terms of wanting to be all in about economic development, but more importantly, inclusion. Because we didn't have a seat at the table. We weren't represented in any form or fashion. And so I took that from a district perspective, and we moved on and we did other things. I ran at large, and Mayor Gantt, I recall when we did run at large, I was elected Mayor Pro Tem. Pat Mumford bested me by 2 votes. But we were the party in charge, and the party in charge at the time, in terms of the Democrats, determined who was going to be Mayor Pro Tem. So we got that. But each time Pat Mumford would see me, he'd do like Pat say Jack and go. 2 and 2, you all remember that? Every vote counts. People, I'm saying to you this day during Black History Month, please, 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 if you don't see what's happening right now throughout our country, and right here in our own city and our county, you have to get out there and exercise your right and encourage the rights of others to do what you have done, which is to go vote. Please do that. Let me go fast forward and jump to my sort of aha moment when I got into the mayor's office. It was when I was able to be there and to know that I had the power at that point, the ability through you all to set the vision and or the tone. Because what that office brings is the ability, as the panel knows, is for you to be able to set the agenda by way of what it is that you want as mayor. Beforehand, as council members, we had to run around and try to find support to gain that, right? But now you can set that agenda. And economic development was one of those agendas. When you say, well, okay, well, what happened during that time? Only 3 things I'll point, and then I'll pass the mic. I was pleased to have been able to go and work on the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and ask for the opportunity for us to be considered as a manufacturing community. Why? Because balance had gone away from the city of Charlotte. And it left in the early 90s, mid-90s. We transitioned from blue collar to white collar. This imbalance couldn't be. See, being from Charlotte, I remember the days of McClancy Pepper Company, Cone Mill, General Tire, Fruhoff Trucking Company, Lance, which still exists. But that's when Charlotte was really, really cracking. We were doing well. People had jobs. And so it's my hope, and it was my hope then as mayor, that we could get back to that place. So in going to Washington, it was to push for this opportunity where we could become a manufacturing community, working to bring balance back. We have to be about that same process even today.
That's right.
Because right now, there's still an imbalance. But together, collectively, we can make our community all that it needs to be. Let me pass the mic, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cannon. Mayor Lyles.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It is Black History Month. And let's celebrate it as much as we can by telling people what it is and why it's important, especially now. So my real name is Viola Alexander Lyles. Everybody calls me Vi. I tell everybody to call me Vi. I was named after my grandmother, and my daughter has been named after me, so our family history really makes a big difference. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and I always tell people that I didn't really understand what was going on, but my next door neighbor was Matthew Perry, who got Harvey Gantt in Clemson. But the neighborhood that I grew up in was one where everybody had a job. Everybody had the ability to whoop your butt if you didn't show out right. We used to work together, and to this day, this neighborhood is cohesive and successful in so many ways. So the reason that I think could have this opportunity to serve you is because so many people served me. So many people stood up in my life, made it possible. I was in the first desegregation schools in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to school with the governor, of course, governor's daughter, but of course she didn't speak to me at all because nobody spoke to any of us This is a funny story. We had this one person in our neighborhood, Jewel, who could drive a car. It was like a little Ford Falcon, and all of the black kids got into that Falcon and went to high school every day. That's what it was like to live in South Carolina. And so when it was time for me to move on, I wanted to go to college. My parents really stressed the idea. Now, Harvey said he had four sisters. I had 5 brothers and no dates. I would tell my mom I was going to the library, and they would follow me in their car and report that I was with some boy. They still do that today. But I left Columbia and came to Charlotte to go to Queens College. It was one of the few schools that my parents approved of because I had an aunt that lived on Van Buren Avenue who taught at West Charlotte that she could come and check on me all the time. So to say anything, I will tell you, my life has been filled with people that made sure I stayed on the steady road and to get this done. And so when you get to a point in life, I will tell you that you've asked the question, how did I become mayor? Well, part of it was because I lost my husband to pancreatic cancer. And we were going through this phase of hospice. And he said, "Val, you know you're not going to be able to do this because you said you swept that floor at least 3 times today." So we got through that, but he told me, he said, find something to do. Now this is where Anthony Foxx comes into play. I was working for the Democratic Convention when it came to Charlotte. And Anthony was, of course, with Harvey and the guy from Duke Energy. They were doing all the big stuff, going to the White House, talking to everyone and having fun. Whereas I was in the office trying to get people to donate money so we could afford to have a convention. So, but at that point in the convention, I really realized what was going to be very different for me. And I had the opportunity to think about what was going to happen, what was going to be my next life moment. I think all women, especially women, need to be thinking about this because for so long we believe in all of this collective, but we have to understand that we have to be able as women to stand up on our own. So my stand-up moment was really when we started out as, I got elected, I'm sorry, I should have said, I got elected as mayor of the city in 2017. I ran against Joe Ford, and I ran against, what's her name? Wait. First of all, y'all gotta chill. Everybody, chill. Shout out to whoever she is. Oh, no, really. But I want to say this. I was sitting in the car. Kate Cunningham ran my campaign. And I was sitting in the car, and we were out at the convention center. And I said, Kay, I don't know if I want to go in that door. What happens if they won and I lost? And Kay said, I ain't worried about that. So we walked on in, followed by my pastor, Clifford Jones. And we had prayer. And we said that I had won. I was just, overwhelmed with what this opportunity would be. So when I started thinking about this, you said what was an aha moment, I believe? The aha moment for me, and I'm going to tell this about Justin back in the corner there. Also, let me just say, if you are an elected official here, y'all stand up and be recognized. Now, yes. Some of you are already standing up. Yes. There you go. Raise your hand, Councilman Graham. These are the people that spend more time reading bad position papers, have to vote on them, and still deliver everything that they committed to during your election. And these folks are really important to who we are and who I am right now, because none of us, you don't do none of this by yourself. So what I would say about my aha moment was when I had these 2 young men come into my office. Now I'm barely sitting in the seat, it's not even hot yet. And we decided to host the Republican convention. You remember Trump won. And it was very controversial. And as I recall, Justin came in along with Braxton, and they had written a manifesto for me to quit and leave because I said it was okay to have the conference here. And they sat in those chairs, and I sat in my chair, and oh my God, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you know, I respected what they said, what they did. It was a tough time, guys. It was at that time that, well, you know what it is? It's at the time we're going through right now. That's what I would say. But I remember sitting there, and they asked me why. And I said, you know, we hosted the Democratic Convention. It put us on the map. I really believe it put us on the map. So if we can do something with the Republicans, and they can come in, and we will showcase our city, we will make sure everybody has a chance to participate in it, we'll be okay. Now, good fortune, it didn't happen. So, for all of that, we ended up having COVID. And at that moment in time of having COVID, it was probably the most difficult time. I was actually in Washington, D.C. at a conference, and I had to come back because we didn't know what was going to happen next. I think that was the first time that we shut down City Hall, told everybody to stay home. I believe it was for 15 days. I baked a lot of cookies that week. But I would say to you, today, serving as mayor, I know that there are a lot of tenets that we have to have and live with. But today, I think it's a different dynamic. What we're trying to do today is make it possible for people to have a decent place to live, to have a good paying job, and have it so that they can get to work on time and not be worried. I got a call one day and the lady said, my car is stopped, I'm gonna lose my job, what am I gonna do? And it's on East Boulevard. It's on Independence Boulevard. Well, I couldn't do anything, I'm not a car mechanic. But what I did was write that story down in my journal because I knew that that was the hallmark for what we needed to do as we move towards to get the ability to move people around the city. Over 900,000 people now. 900,000 people now. We have a city council made up of 11 people. A lot of us are colored. I'm not ashamed to say that. A lot of us are colored. And we owe this community the ability to move around so that people can work. This is just fundamental. And it brings me back to my neighborhood. Everybody in my neighborhood worked. They gave us the opportunity to see what work had value for you and what could happen. And I know that's not a perfect world. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna, but I will tell you that my grandfather dug with mules the first basement of a store in Columbia, South Carolina. My brothers still do it today. And that, to me, along with following my faith, is the most important thing that anyone can do, is to really look forward to what people can do if you keep your prayer, if you remember your comments, if you remember what we can do. So we're about to embark on a really great opportunity. If we get this red line gone, if we get the ability to charge that 1 cent sales tax, I promise you that this city will change, and it will change for people of color more than anything else. So thank you for having me.
Mayor Lyles taking the Tupac approach. It's like watching 8 Mile. So, Mr. Gantt, we all know your resume as the professional desegregator. Yeah. What's that? You wanna? So, Steve, can we play Mayor Foxx's video?
I don't know.
No. So, Mayor Gantt, again, we all know the legacy that you have. Again, just a professional desegregator at every level However, a lot of people might not know, before you went to Clemson, you first went to Ames, Iowa to go to Iowa State University. Now, I've always been curious. Did you just like witness or see a system of whiteness that was so pleasant? You're like, man, I got to go save South Carolina and go. What did you take from Iowa State back to South Carolina and Clemson University, and how did those lessons transcend your run for public office? Transition into your run for public office?
That's an interesting question. A lot of people ask the question, how do you go from Charleston, South Carolina to Ames, Iowa back in 1960? I had a great guidance counselor in high school. And I thought I was pretty smart, and she did too. And she issued a challenge to me because somehow I had navigated to the point where people were saying, even though there are very few architects of color in America, they knew I was determined to do it. I loved to sketch and draw and all that kind of stuff. So she shepherded me to apply to the traditional schools that you expect people to apply to who are persons of color. And so I applied and got into A&T, agriculture. Had a great course in architectural engineering at Howard University, and a place down in Alabama, Tuskegee. And she says, now that you've gotten into all of those schools, you got to choose one, but I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to see if you can get into an all-white school. You can't get into Clemson. You can't get into any of these schools in the South. But so I accepted the challenge, and I was a football player in high school, and so I was drawn to the Midwestern schools, the Big Ten, and back then was the Big Eight, and applied to a number of those, and Iowa State accepted me. And I told her, see, I told you I could do it. Now the question was, are you going to go? And I said, you know what, I am. So I went to Iowa, met a lot of wonderful people. It was indeed an all-white world, almost. Very few African Americans there. In fact, I was a little resentful of the fact that oftentimes in my first few days there, people mistakenly thought I was an athlete. People would come up and say, what position are you going to be playing on the football field? And I didn't quite pick that up until finally realizing that there were a few just everyday students who were students of color. But nevertheless, they were very friendly, and what I started to miss a lot was not being in the South. I started missing being around African Americans. I found out that while we were at the bottom of the ladder here in the South, a lot of people in the Midwest were at the bottom of the ladder. Catholics, and certain kinds of folks of different nationalities. But they treated me fine. What drove me back to Clemson was the cold weather. I bet I've told that story about 1,000 times. People have heard it. Some of you may have heard it. And I decided that after a day spent walking halfway across the campus in 18 degree below zero weather, that this was not for me. Particularly when my friends in the South, the people I went to high school with, were telling me about the wonderful times they had at dances and all the other good things that they were enjoying. And I wasn't enjoying Iowa in that sense. So I decided to do a crazy thing. After hearing that Clemson had one of the top 20 architectural schools in the country, and after seeing people like Vivian Malone try to go to Alabama, University of Alabama, and seeing other folks trying to integrate Charlene Hunter Golf, integrating the University of Georgia, and James Meredith beginning to try to go to the University of Mississippi. I said, you know what? I'll bet Clemson will accept me if I file an application to go there. That's what brought me back. I filed an application. They responded nicely and said, we want you to send out your transcript from college and high school, just to check all that out. And long story short, they discovered with the transcript that I went to an all-black high school, of course, because everything in South Carolina was segregated. And I decided, they then wrote back a letter after seeing that I'd gone to Burke High School in Charleston. They said, we noticed that you had good grades at Burke and you're making good grades at Iowa State. Stay there. Well, they didn't quite say it that way, but I got the message. And that made me mad, and I applied again and said, oh, you misunderstand me, I want to go to Clemson. They couldn't say, for some reason, they couldn't say, we can't accept you because you're black, because there was a 54 Supreme Court decision that said the segregation was unconstitutional. They couldn't do that. So what they ultimately did was decide to see how long when would I give up? And I was damn sure not going to give up. Not at all. So through five applications. And that took a summer session, fall session, another fall session. They finally decided, we finally decided with Matthew Perry's help, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, that we would file a lawsuit in the summer of 1962. And I think the rest of you know that history. Clemson had to let the barriers down. I got it. Good job. I'm not a professional. I want you to take that term back. I'm not a professional desegregator. I just wanted to go to school. And that's what a lot of people didn't understand. That the aspirations of a lot of black youngsters back in that time, they wanted the very best for themselves and for their families, and they wanted to grow up in the good old warm South. And they had the opportunity to break down those things that made the South and the climate of the South not what it should be. People wanted to seek the promise of America, and they wanted to do it where they grew up, where their families were. And that's one of the big things that those who were trying to keep us out could never quite understand. So we got in, and I've never regretted that move at all. Never regretted it, because I think it does so much good. It did so much good for South Carolina. And everybody here knows that I'm a big Clemson fan. And it does give me a sense of satisfaction when I look at their football team, for example, or their basketball team. And they got more black folks on there than anybody else. And that might not, it would have happened, might not have happened as soon, because I'm sure somebody else will come along and go with them.
Who was the first black mayor of Charlotte? Harvey Gantt. Who opened the first integrated architecture firm in the state of North Carolina? That's three. Oh, you know, I mean, at some point it becomes a trend.
So that makes me
Where's Jasmine? Jasmine. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, you have the opportunity to ask questions. If you would like to do so, get a piece of paper from Jasmine, write your name on it, and we're going to pull your name from it to come to you later for questions. Also Flex. So I'm just quick story. I gave Mayor Gantt a call last night to ensure, just do a check-in. And he said he had some concerns about parking. So I told him about the back parking lot that is for employees and how it's gated in and give them very precise directions, right? And when you get back there, somebody lets you in and walk you in, you got to find the door in the building. Well, come to find out, he designed this building. So, but he let me go on, and, okay, yeah. So yeah, that is, again, just, thank you for your service. So again, y'all, we're going to start asking questions. So Jasmine's going to get that paper to you. So there is a movie that came out maybe about 15 years ago called The Butterfly Effect. And the plot was essentially how the smallest things, such as the wind from a butterfly flapping its wings, could lead to something just dynamic. I said dynamic. Just something, you know, monumental. So I wanted to know, Mayor Lyles and Mayor Cannon. Mayor Lyles, when you were a young girl in Columbia, South Carolina, did you hear about the things Harvey Gantt was doing some miles away at Clemson? What was the conversation around that? What were the feelings around that? And Mayor Cannon, as a young man at South Met, and then moving on to that institution that wants to be Winston-Salem State University, what do you remember about seeing Harvey Gantt run for mayor? And what do you feel like the butterfly effect is with each of you when you saw or heard the chatter around something so groundbreaking? We'll start with Mayor Lyles.
So being close to Matthew Perry's home and his family, he had a son. He now has a niece that's a judge in South Carolina right now, down in your part of the world, in Harvey. But what I would say is that we came along at the time when people were beginning to think about civil rights. And people, you know, like I might go to a small Baptist church in Columbia, but we would take up a collection to fund people being able to, you know, litigate for Harvey. And that's my most important, most memorable for Harvey, because we would actually collect, you know, your nickels, your dimes, your dollars that you had to make sure that he had adequate representation. I mean, more than adequate now, right now, but I just really believe that that was my connection with it.
Mayor Cannon.
Well, yeah, I was at South Met at the time and about to move on, and I did so higher learning, Fayetteville State University and North Carolina A&T State University. And I remember my mom calling me and saying, you know, Eddie Knox is my guy, but Harvey Gantt is the man. and I didn't know a whole lot about him at the time because I was young, right? And we weren't as engaged at that particular time. But after being able to see him, learn more about him, and watch what was going on, I said, here's somebody who someone would love to emulate. I'd love to emulate Harvey Gantt. I can't be Harvey Gantt. I don't think anybody can. He's his own person. He's his own man. He did his own thing. But what he represented did so much for this community. It brought so much change. And as much change as it brought to South Carolina with him going there for Clemson, it did that same thing here for the city, for people here in the city of Charlotte. It made me, it made you, many of us in this room and outside of this room, think, you know what? I can do that too. I can be that as well. Thank you for setting the tone, being the example. We love you for that. I love you. Come on now. Come on. You know, love you. So, I'm done. I didn't get it.
We will have our first question from an audience member, and it is the ruler and owner of all, Vegas Ford, Mr. Chris Dennis, commercial real estate developer.
Thank you so much. This panel is amazing. The room is filled with so much talent. And thank you for our mayors who have led the way and opened the doors to so much. Again, we stand here on your shoulders and all the work that you've done. My question is around, as you look back over time and you've seen the changes happen in Charlotte, How do you continue to see the upward mobility shift in Charlotte, and what can we do to help you continue to push that forward?
They're throwing their thumb over here.
You're mayor currently.
Okay, so Chris, thanks for that question. And I want to say thank you for the work that you've done on Beattysport Road. I mean, while Chris has invested while Chris has invested most of the last 3 years to do what he has accomplished, we still have a lot to do. We all know that we have communities. I'll tell you, I don't know, many of you probably know that I used to work for the city. I used to work in the budget department. And one of the things that I was assigned to do, and my position at that time, was to do a capital improvement budget. And it's amazing people do that, but that was my job. And I drove around the city with lots of people to try to figure out what a capital improvement was. You know, I'd had the college degree part of it, but you have to really touch things and see how people were feeling. And what I learned was that first project was really important because it identified the disparities on the west side. I don't even know where that study went after it went to the office. And it didn't have any impact on our budget at the time. Nothing was happening. And so one of the things that I find most important in the job that I have now is those disparities still exist. And we have to figure out a way, and we are working really hard on the opportunities that we want to present to have people like Chris be able to get loans that are appropriate, not, say, well, you're black, so it's a tax on the loan amount for the interest. But we, as a city, can begin to talk about how we can be the bank for the black community, how we can suggest that people can do things in a different way. And my goal at the end of all of this is that we have an equitable capital program for our city, and we make up for those things that we did that harmed people, and that we have the opportunity to fix that so that we can still continue to grow, that we can still say that this is a city that you can thrive in. And I believe that the efforts that we take as we talk about the corridors of opportunity, as we talk about how to do trains and where they will go and where the buses will go, that we can have an impact that will make the city one of the stars across this country.
Again. Black high school graduation. No applause for the end. All right, we have a question from Jonette Carpy, a member of our Liberian community.
Let me finish up with Chris. Please. Is that okay? Okay. Chris, one, thank you so much for being here and posing the question as well in terms of upward mobility. Sometimes, and not in all things, but sometimes we should consider going backward in order to go forward. There was a time, and Mayor Lyles will recall this, she was a staffer then, we used to have a job skill training program with the city of Charlotte. Anybody remember that? Yes. That, again, was a time when we were doing well. A lot of people were going through that job training skills, the job skill training program with the city of Charlotte, and we were cranking out results. People were landing opportunities. And then slowly but surely, the council changed. And as it changed, so did the direction in terms of where we were going. All of a sudden, Central Piedmont Community College began to be that place of where we started steering people. And once that car started turning that corner, I knew it was gone. Sometimes you have to go back in order to go forward. There's a cost involved in doing something like that. But being intentional to create some upward mobility is where I think we have to be. Putting our arms around some of these entities like NCIA, which is a job skill training program that's out there, is a place where we all be hanging our hat. There's another gentleman out there, I think, that's doing like aircraft repair training. We have to get behind someone like that. Educate our community beyond this Black History Month on where the opportunities are so that there can be a level of inclusion across the board. Is that happening? Yes. Could it be happening more? Yes. Do we have leadership that will be about that program? Yes. That's a question for you, right? And so, as we go, with that, I just feel like you have to sometimes go backward in order to go forward. Here's another example: the CIAA tournament. So when I was mayor, we went, and we got another 6 years for the CIAA tournament. We weren't gonna stop there. We went on and got the headquarters here. Now tell me, what sense does it make for us to let something go that's on average bringing in $47 million a year to our city? Right. Creating opportunity for many people that look like us, right? So we need to continue to go back, I think, sometimes on some things, and not all things, but in order to go forward. And I think we have the leadership here to be able to do that, because I believe it's about time for that thing to be up in Baltimore, Maryland. It needs to come back to the city of Charlotte. Period.
Mary Lyles.
I just want to say that, nobody does stuff, what do they say, you have to have a team. So I want you to know that Malcolm Graham, as well as Victoria Watlington, are back there. Now, Malcolm every day tells me we're going to get the CIAA. So y'all just start getting your dresses out and all the parties started whenever we get it signed. But I want you to also know that Victoria is working really, really hard on how do we actually take all of our policies, put them together in a way that we can remember whether they started with me, with Harvey, or with you, so that we can assess these programs, because one of the most important things that we have to do is to give people the opportunity. And that means that we're working really hard on, I would say, if there was something else that I should say, Victoria or Malcolm, welcome. I don't think that he will let me take the mic over there, but you talk loud. Okay, so but there are activities that we're doing in terms of working and having people. The program that I'm most proud of is that we took 4 seniors out of CMS and they got regular jobs. They make more money than I do every day. They have health care, they have opportunities to learn, and they have opportunities to advance. And that program is called an EE program, I believe, so that we can take people that are already, that want to have a job. Everybody doesn't need to go to college. Everybody doesn't have to go to trade school either. We can train people on the job in the city. There are 8,000 city employees. There are a lot of openings, but we're going to try to open it with the kids from CMS as they graduate, so that we can talk, what do they say, walk the talk. That's what we're trying to do. So I don't know if you want to yell out anything, but thank y'all for what you do.
I don't know. When I hear questions about upward mobility, and social mobility and economic mobility, I sometimes think we beat up ourselves too much. We have been moving the needle. Trust me. When I was mayor of the city, I heard by say 900,000 people in the city limits now. We were talking about a city of 300,000 people. What does that mean? We've grown 3 times that size. And I see black people coming to Charlotte. And I see them doing very well. Somebody quoted a number to me the other day that says we have close to 1,000 black millionaires in Charlotte. Think about that for a moment. Are they visible to you? Are they making some difference in the community? Are they employing folks in their businesses? We didn't have close to that number when I was mayor of the city of Charlotte. In fact, one of the things that I got beaten up by one of my opponents when I ran for a 3rd term, I made a speech in Tampa saying my disappointment is on the economic sector. We have not created enough black millionaires in Charlotte. Because I think the economy is at bottom, one of the key levers for reaching full first-class citizenship in this community, when we can have businesses that are employing our folk, when we can have businesses giving to causes that are appropriate, when we can have businesses that can contribute to a professorial chair at Johnson C. Smith University, when we don't always have to turn to the white industries in this community to, in fact, underwrite, can y'all hear me? Underwrite many of the causes we have. My point is there has been progress made. All the 600,000 people who have come here in the last 30 some odd years are not white. Many of them came here because they're seeking opportunities. And in many ways, I think we should have gotten to the point where the city is not the major instrument by which we see economic improvement in our people. We should have evolved, like the larger community, to making sure that we take care of our folks in businesses that thrive and do well. Because in many ways, I see y'all doing the same thing we were trying to do, city that is, government, 30-some years ago. That's not progress to me. You know, what we need is an economy that, in fact, goes full force with an engine of private sector involvement by richer black people in this community who are joining their resources to build solid businesses.
All right.
And I think with that, since we're in a discussion, right? I think with that, just short. Mayor Gantt said it, but no, please don't leave here this day and not hear what he just said about working together works.
That's right.
Because we won't all the time work together for the common good and common interest of one another. How many people in this room, are there 10 developers in here that are African American? Raise your hand. Are there 10 architects in here that are African American? Raise your hand. Are there 10 concrete suppliers in this room? Raise your hand. And so to that point, right, and so forth, if we can encourage those millionaires, those close to 1,000, or whomever they may be, to have something to happen in a way of sort of a internship, for lack of another word, someone that you can go in and train up people to be able to understand and know how to do and or to become an elite architect like Mayor Gantt happened to have been. We need to find those folks that are out there and create those opportunities. Because if we can work together, I'm telling you, things would be a whole lot different and we'd be much, much better off.
He got it in him. Councilman Brown.
Just want to reiterate what the mayor said. On yesterday, the Economic Development Committee, in which I chair, just had an amazing report in terms of a plan that we're going to implement in March for workforce development. It talks about all the things that many of the comments made at the table, apprenticeships program, workforce development initiatives. We have opportunity hubs on 6 quarters of opportunities where folks can actually walk in and apply for a job versus going to a portal, right, and getting lost in a computer system. So I think what we have done is really robust. I think it's meaningful. I think the strides that we're making on quarters of opportunities, supporting small business development, utilizing minority-owned firms, the apprenticeship program, the job programs that we have with the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. The Mayor's Youth Employment Program continues to be a vital option for many of us. What we're doing with the Pearl Medical District for workforce development, getting people to get a job without a college degree, a certificate via Central Piedmont Community College, are amazing work. Mr. Gantt is correct. 117 individuals every day, 7 days a week, moved to the city of Charlotte, many of which are African Americans, all looking for jobs, all looking for affordable housing, all looking for a way to get back and forth to work, and bringing resources to the table. So I think we're making meaningful steps forward. Certainly there's work that we have to be done, but boy, we're making so much progress. But Cannon is right. We all got to find a way to work together and pull in the same direction and support businesses like Chris Dennis's and all the other African American businesses in this community, and especially in this climate that we have to wrap our arms around them and give them the type of support necessary.
I just wanted to add one thing, two tangible things. We know that we just approved, and thank you all, because of your vote, we know that we're going to have $100 million in housing and additional dollars in bonds across transportation and neighborhoods. And those are opportunities to, those are opportunities to come in with your business and be able to win some of those contracts. Another item that, if you all have seen here recently, Scale Up CLT, the applications are open right now. So if you have a growing business, you can leverage that program that's put on by the city. So please let us know if you need help getting connected to that.
Thank you, Councilman Watlington. So again, y'all, filing starts in July. This is not a political conversation. This is the people behind the position. We want to keep the tone of the room in that sentiment. I appreciate the information. Thank you, Councilwoman Watlington, Councilman Graham. Now we're going to go to one of our communities connector, a member of the Liberian community, Ms. Jarnette Carpet.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Winston. I am so excited to be here. As I said, my name is Jarnette Carpet, or Carpe, but I want to bring it down a little to a personal. Yes, I want to bring it down a little to a personal perspective. A lot of people want to elevate, they want titles, they want to be in the light until the light gets hot, until the heat comes. So talk about how you guys handle the heat as it relates to just leadership in general, and how do you find time to relax and just settle amongst the heat?
And if you could, please keep your answers within 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes.
Let's see. So I would say that yes, there's a lot of heat. The way that you handle heat is to think, what can you do differently and better? Nobody's perfect in this world. Nobody's perfect. But we have 11 people that have to make decisions for the entire city. And so it's not always easy. Sometimes it's a little bit of a push. I see some hot netting of heads right now saying, sometimes we get along better, sometimes we don't. But the whole thing is that at the end of the day, you have to have some common goal, as Harvey said, as Patrick said, that you want to do something better. And I believe every member of the Charlotte City Council deeply wants to do something better for this community. We'll just have to figure out how to get around with it. I do not drink at night. That's what I would tell you.
At night.
That ain't right.
How do you handle the heat? You work to try to lower the temperature by working to be as, again, inclusive with the members of the body that you serve with as possible. Members of council have to feel like that they matter, that their leadership counts, because it does. This is a council manager form of government. It's not a strong mayor. We're ceremonial. Yes, we can break some ties. Yes, we can go and do some other things as it relates to setting the agenda, which is major. But they, the council, have to be a unit where a mayor can talk to them and say, hey, let's remember who we represent. We have these 5 focus areas of whatever they may be, between transportation, public safety, economic development, environment, whatever it may be. But let's come together to try to make this work. And I think, and not just here, it's countrywide. You're not going to find people that are going to be on the same page all the time, 100% of the time. But respect where people happen to have been if they voted in opposition to where you wanted them to be. Because guess what? There's still other issues that have to be addressed. A mayor has to be that person that understands that, look, I may have lost this fight today. I heard my 30 seconds, but we can win another one on tomorrow. And I was the sort of person whereby it didn't matter to me. I didn't need unanimous support. Like Mayor Gantt, just give me 6 or 7 people. I'm good. The agenda's been moved. Move on. And so I think you have to do that not just there with officials, but you also have to do that in my last 10 seconds with the business community. With the business community. Because they are a community too that has to be reckoned with and worked with for the betterment of our city.
Perfect timing.
There's different kinds of heat that a mayor faces. Some of them are just things that he has or she has envisioned for the community, and she's trying to convince her colleagues, her council members, to go along. And what I used to do was share my vision, but I'm willing to hear the council members' vision, and then tell how I arrived and where I was, and how I can let them share some of that if they disagree with me. That's the easy kind of thing, I think. What you're doing is allowing yourself to be open enough, because there's a crucial vote coming up that could change the direction of the community. And you feel as if you've tried your best to convince at least 6 people, in my case, in your case too. There's a different kind of heat that I recall facing years ago. There was a Confederate monument that used to be out in front of City Hall. I had 7 council members at that time, 5 of whom felt we ought to leave that issue alone. Harvey, you cannot win. I was a mayor then, but the same applied. This would have applied if I was mayor. My point being, sometimes there are moral issues that you can't move from. It's all about your being and who you are. And even though you stand in the minority, even though politically you can't get that vote, you have to have something down inside of you that says, I'm going to speak up anyway. And maybe somebody will be moved in the spur of the moment to say, you know, he or she is right. And we got to go forward.
Okay.
All I can say is that the monument is not there today.
Yeah.
So, all right, wait a minute, y'all. Look, surprise, surprise. Right now on the line via Zoom, we have Mayor Anthony Foxx.
Right.
So, Mayor Anthony Foxx, you have a room of 200,000 people right now at the Belmont Center. And I don't want to hold you long because I know you stopped your day to be with us. If you could just give us a synopsis of how you utilize and leverage your upbringing and growing up in the west side of Charlotte and graduated from West Charlotte High School, how you took all of those experiences to shape the way you were the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. Can you just kind of give us a summary and what those things and how they added value to your experience?
Well, first of all, just let me say thank you to all of you who are here today. Winston, thank you for running me down. I'm sorry I'm not present, but it's great to be.
Shay, put yours on mute. All right, go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, I grew up right off of Batersford Road, over there in Dillbrook, right behind the McDonald's and Presbyterian Church and Memorial Presbyterian Church. And I had great role models in the community, beginning with my mother and grandparents, but extending up and down the street. Pop Miller lived 2 doors down, and he would sometimes pull me aside and ask what classes I was taking, and when he was unimpressed, he would tell me that he was unimpressed. The sort of push of these elders also impacted my own sense of ambition. I wanted them to be proud of what I was doing, so I always tried really hard. Of course, started at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, when Coleman Carey was the pastor, and transitioned to Pastor Jones. Both in their different ways have been incredibly impactful in my life. And then, of course, as I started to understand more of the world around me, I was aware that there were these people around who were trying to create opportunities for me, even though they may not have known my name at the time. And I'm talking specifically about Julius Chambers. My grandparents were teachers, and so we'd be talking about the school board meetings, at the kitchen table. Politics was always in the conversation. But whenever Julius Chambers' name came up, they would always refer to him as Lawyer Chambers. So I actually thought his first name was Lawyer. I didn't know it was Julius until much later. But his own drive to create opportunities for African American kids to gain access to the very best public education possible was something that I actually understood because of the kitchen table conversation. So when I went to school, I saw school in a certain way as my own little civil rights movement. It was my chance to do my part to try to make the world a little better. And part of that was studying, but also part of it was learning how to work and be around and participate with other people, even those who didn't look like me. I was incredibly fortunate in the public school system to have so many of the great teachers I had. Frances Waller, the principal of Irwin Elementary School when I graduated, and even before her, Bruce Irons. And then after that, went into middle school at Piedmont, open middle school, David Butler, and named a high school after him after his tragic death, but he was an incredible teacher. I took algebra with him, and he coached my JV basketball team. And then I went to West Charlotte High School, 20 years after my mother had graduated, and that was another great experience. Of course, when she graduated in 1969, it was an all-black school, and by the time I graduated in 1989, it was one of the symbols of integration across the country. And all of those things were part of me. And I remember in my high school years, there was an effort to move a trash incinerator over to the west side. And my grandfather and Joe Champion and a bunch of the folks who had been around for a while mobilized the community to prevent that from happening, and they were successful in preventing that from happening. And so I saw political activism as well. But nothing got my family and my household more fired up than seeing good people come through into public service. And I can remember in 1981 putting out yard signs for Harvey Gantt. I can remember in 1983 being so pleased and happy to see him elected as mayor of Charlotte. I didn't even realize at the time what an incredible feat that was of history. But I certainly saw in him someone who carried himself with an uncommon assuredness, incredibly smart, had all of the things at the table and knew it. And other people knew it too. And it was beautiful to see the city embrace somebody who was a historic first, but who had such grace and confidence and even humility to go along with it. So I feel like in many ways I grew up in a magical period of time in the city. And I believed that people could work together because I had seen it. And I recognized that when I came into the mayor's office, that a lot of the ecosystem that I grew around had frayed a bit. The schools were moving away from school integration. The law was also moving away from civil rights remedies. The economic stratification in the city had continued. I don't think we ever really solved that problem, but it had also continued. And the West Side had looked more or less like it did when I grew up. And so when I walked into the mayor's office, obviously when you serve as mayor of a city, you represent the entire city. And I did. But I also recognized there were some unique challenges we faced here on the Beatties Ford Road corridor in particular. And we started working to deal with those. Project Lift was part of that. It was an effort by the philanthropic community to focus on the schools on the Beatties Ford Road corridor. We created a business park on the Greenway down by Johnson C. Smith, where the Mecklenburg County Bar now sits. That would have, no one would have thought that would have happened 20 years ago. We also put forward the Gold Line, which I'm still very bullish on it. It has a different challenge than the South Corridor line did. The South Corridor was built along more or less abandoned industrial sites. The streetcar is being built in a highly neighborhood area. So the development of it is going to have to be much more careful, and it's got to be done with the community. But we're starting to see the Beatties Ford Road corridor become more of a corridor of opportunity, and Mayor Lyles has done so much great work to build on that. So anyway, I brought all of those experiences with me to the mayor's office. I took it all to Washington, and I continue to feel very strongly that Charlotte is my home. It will always be my home. If I didn't have these two kids my aunt Mary. All right, I see you.
Yeah, we got out of time.
Thank you so much, Mayor Foxx. And, I appreciate, thank you. They love you. And I appreciate you not filing that restraining order. But thank you so much. We'll check in again. All right. Whew. Thank you so much. So we're out of time, but I want to end on time. So please, if we can have each candidate give us a closing statement. We can look, that man got to go. So if we can have, starting with Mayor, we'll just go in order from Mayor Cannon on over.
One, thank you so much for having us here Tuesday morning breakfast. Thank you all for being here this day to come and to be a part of this discussion. Certainly appreciate it. In closing, I leave here today, if I've never been more honest than what I need to be in the past, I leave here today being more honest, more humble, more objective, more grateful, even more caring, and more willing to go the extra mile, whatever that means. I have had the honor of being elected by many of you, and just want to tell you thank you for what it was that you did for me then. Thank you for what it is that you've been doing for me now in the way of prayer, because prayer goes a long way, and I know it got me through. And I'm so honored to be on this panel with great mayors, historical figures that have done great things for our community. In Mayor Gantt, in Mayor Lyles, and in Mayor Foxx virtually. Charlotte has been what it was. Charlotte is what it is today. And together, collectively, Charlotte will be even greater than what it is right now with all of us working together. So thank you for the opportunity, and may God continue to keep and bless you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cannon. All right.
Okay, so Harvey handed me the mic, so I guess that means I'm going to say that I want to say thank you to this community and the people that live in it and the people that get people out to vote, that do the whole thing, that take care of our kids, our neighborhoods, being willing to send in that email that says we can do better. And then that actually helps all of us do this in a way. But I want to say thank you for voting for the bonds for the housing. It is aside from what we're trying to do with mobility, it is a key part of what the strategy is. Because if we can actually have trains, perhaps we can build houses next to trains and people don't have to spend $5,000 to buy a new car. There is a plan, there is a strategy, and something that I hope this community, that at some point I'll be able to say thank you for your support for the Red Line.
Thank you.
Well, I'm a little bit overwhelmed to see the size of this crowd. I don't know why I expected to see 25 or 30 people. Well, I don't even know what your attendance normally is now. 25.
Hundreds every Tuesday.
Here's what I do like. And I thank all of you for being here. I think that it is very important that groups like this keep sustaining itself and adding younger people to this crowd too. The reason I'm saying that is people like myself who are octogenarians are dependent upon younger people being aware of what's going on in the community, sustaining this kind of organization, sharing good information. And I stress that because people are getting all kinds of information, and not all of it is good. But it is important to have this group continue to meet. And I think of Sarah Stevenson and many of her cohorts who all those years, even when us politicians weren't always attending, they sustained it, kept it going, kept us informed. I hope you never quit doing that. Thank you for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further, please, just round of applause for such a distinguished panel of history makers. Yes, stand up, that is right. If you're able, stand up.